Hey everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, and I want to talk about the events of February 2023. And hello to the Know Thyself podcast, guys. Thank you so much for everything. So let's talk about some things that happened last month and they're going to happen next month, excuse me, that are really affecting a lot of people. Um, so we know that Mars finally went forward in January. Yay. Mercury went forward. That's not such a big deal, right? And Uranus went forward. So Mars is energy, and Uranus is also more like mental energy. But because Mars went forward in Gemini, which is a mental sign, there's this idea, especially for the Mars, that it's catching up with itself and that it's like kind of barreling forward. And that happened in like mid to late January, all these things were happening. So I feel like some people have been like, since like that happened, it's like, whoa, like things are just, first things were like kind of stuck with the Mars. And then it's like, whoosh, and a lot of people have been feeling anxious, having trouble sleeping, all sorts of things like this, hearts racing, feeling nervous. It just seems to be like that barreling forward kind of deal. The other thing that it can also be is that in March, the planet Pluto is going to go into Aquarius. Now, planets retrograde and then they go direct, right? So with Pluto, it moves so slowly, like it changes signs right around now, 25, 30 years, so between 20, around 25 years. And Pluto has an erratic sort of orbit. It's an ellipse, and so it changes the speed at which it goes through different signs. But it's a big deal when Pluto changes signs, even though it's going to go into Aquarius in March. It's going to pop out again in July. Oh no, in October, and then it goes back into Aquarius January 2024 for good. But this idea of, let's call it an ingress when planets move into a new sign, it can be almost a little ominous when that happens. We don't notice it. So sometimes when the moon is about to change signs, people can feel a little funny, or the day before the sun changes signs. Even if you notice these tiny things. I was going to say, before your birthday, before you have the beginning of a new solar cycle, some people get a little depressed before their birthday, before the sun renews itself, So this idea of going from one sign to the other, or in terms of the birthday, finishing a cycle, that can be kind of heavy. And Pluto's the heaviest of the heavies, So there can be a sense of kind of doomy kind of feeling sometimes, or at least like a pressure coming in. So I think that combined with the Mars moving forward and then the Pluto about to change signs. But what's interesting about March is that Mars finally changes signs. It went into Gemini at the end of August, and then that's going to change signs and go into Cancer. Pluto's going to change signs, and also Saturn, and it's going to be like right at the same time. So I think there's that Mars is barreling forward to go into its next sign, and the Pluto is coming along, and I don't know. These make people feel weird. So there's all of that. Now, granted, it's also a time of a lot of potential energy, catching up with things. You want to finish up. Prioritizing things that are important to you is really great for this time period, over the next 2 months or so. Now, with the full moon we're going to have on the 5th of February, and I'm doing this on the 3rd, that, of course, Sun opposed Moon, Sun in Aquarius, Moon in Leo, and then Uranus will be squaring the full moon. So full moons are always a little amped up. Uranus is that like electrical deal and can be very rebellious or irritated sometimes. So that's going to be an interesting full moon. Again, people's attitude can be a little leave things to be desired because people are feeling so frantic, But there's also an inventiveness to that full moon, to see like you're daring to have some certain breakthroughs, or this idea again of finishing what's really important to you that you've been holding out on for a long time or haven't had time to do or whatnot. So that full moon can be daring to make these changes, Doesn't have to be, it might still be people being extra irritable, but with the full moon, they can go. And then the full moon's on the 5th, and then on the 19th, we have the new moon. The new moon will be in Pisces, but it's going to be real near Saturn, which is still going to be in Aquarius, but it's close enough to be, it's called a conjunction. And Saturn is really grounded. I was trying to find things this month that are a little more grounded. But that idea of that you're putting your heart on your sleeve or something with that full moon and with all these planets barreling forward. And then that new moon with Saturn is like, I'm doing the right thing. Or you can see that where there's little breaks to be able to take breaths, to praise yourself, to feel centered, do centering exercises, deep breathing, in the midst of this sort of like leaping forward energy, and also if you are just kind of running ragged, to be able to say, do I really want this? It's like, is this meaningful to me? It's a check-in time, as well, to make sure you're not just, running crazy and it's like, wait a minute, what am I doing here? So making sure your goals are like in your heart, with that new moon. So the other thing is that's interesting, in alignment with what I just said, is that even though Mercury is direct, it hasn't caught up with itself until February. Okay. Well, February 7th, it's going to catch up with itself. And then on February 10th, it's going to conjunct Pluto. Now, when it did go retrograde, it was real close to Pluto. So Mercury's our thinking, and Pluto is this intensity, but it's very passionate, and it's very much about, again, this deep sense of meaning. So I'm talking, what I'm thinking about, what I'm doing in my day-to-day world is really Mercury. So this idea of Mercury starting to cover new territory and making sure it's meaningful. So it's bringing that back like mid-February about what's really meaningful to me, does this stuff matter? With friendships, with, again, daily activities, your spiritual path too could be Mercury, like how you construct your day-to-day thinking, which is Mercury, but from this higher perspective of Pluto, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so that can be also renewing if you have meditation practice or yoga practice or something like that, but trying to put pressure on yourself with those things, because there's so much pressure stuff, but be able to eliminate some things so it's easier to have time to do the things you want to do, or be with the people that are really meaningful. Like maybe it's kind of rating people, but say, this relationship is really meaningful, and I tend to just people please and do this over here. This is my regular thing to do. I want to do this with my time. I want to see this person, or and so that can be very extra fulfilling, with that Mercury going past that station point, as we say. And another piece of good news is that all the planets are direct until April, which is the worst thing in the world to have a planet retrograde, but it seems like somebody's always retrograde. So we have from mid-January into April with all the planets direct, so you can't complain about that stuff. I mean, things are still happening and the ingresses are big, but it's just, again, this time with that forward motion and just being aware of that. Another thing that's really soothing is Venus is in Pisces for most of the month. When's it going? Yeah, it goes in like the 22nd, it goes into Aries, but Venus is in Pisces, and it's working with the planet Neptune that's also in Pisces, and Neptune is the planet that's linked with Pisces, and then Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, so it's this nice sense of, again, peacefulness. What I can see with that, again, as some sort of counterbalance to all this forward energy is, again, this peacefulness kind of thing. If it's art, music, taking baths, walking in nature, doing gratitude lists, like things that are about, what you really love in life and focusing on what you love, and feel fulfilled by, and having some quiet, because Neptune and Pisces can be silence, or music that's really soothing, so it's almost, like creating a sense of silence within you, or stillness or balance, or the idea of nature sounds being, a different sort of sound as opposed to chaos and, whatever, radio up louder, TV or something. So something about having a sense of appreciation for your life, for including something like that in the day, you know, and surrounding yourself with beauty, and all of that. So this is also great. So those are the kind of things that are going on in February. You know, I think another thing just to add to this forward momentum was even Jupiter going back into Aries. And when it was in Aries a little bit in 2022, and then it came going forward, and that's going fast too, because it's going to zip through the rest of do its Aries thing and then go right into Taurus. And that's like, wow, because it normally takes a whole year to go through a sign. But it's just the fact that it's Aries is this galloping energy anyway, and Jupiter's very enthusiastic, so I think that also is part of this whirlwind energy, you know. So it's just a lot of components like that. So just know if you're feeling a little edgy or nervous, you're not alone. But there's these still points you can take, and part of it is seeing what is excessive or what is meaningless to me. Why am I doing it? Do I have to do this? Do I have to think this? Do I have to talk to them? Whatever. Okay. So if you'd like a session with me, you can. My phone number should be down here on under the YouTube. 248-583-1663. You can email me, aluna@alunamichaels.com. And check out my website for more information on the signs and different things like that. And yeah, if you want a private session, that's always the best way to look into your chart really and see how these things are more affecting you personally. So, and I also have my book on Amazon, Amazon Kindle, The Spiritual Gifts of the 12 Astrological Signs. Just a kind of way to guide you with meditation with the different signs in your chart, your sun, moon, rising sign. Okay, well, bye-bye for now, and I'll see you next month.